Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Social Critic. I'm Sohail Shakir, your host, and we have a very special episode today. I'm here with Gabby Bazan, who will be our guest for today in talking about the topic of influence. Gabby has a podcast called The Gift of Gab, and we're excited to have her. So thank you, Gabby, for being here.
And same to you, Sohail. This is the Gift of Gab. My name is Gabby, and Sohail is joining us. He's the social critic, so don't judge him for being an OC guy, but we actually really like Sohail, and you'll see why. I'm happy to be
Yeah,
here. Thank
yeah, no,
you.
you bet. Yeah, and don't worry, we won't judge you for being an LA gal either. So
Ah,
yeah,
he went there.
yeah. Awesome, good deal.
So,
Okay, so today's topic is influence,
right.
and so we had a really good discussion before our discussion today about the nature of influence and different topics and different ways to be influenced, both externally and internally. And I know that some of the ways that we get influenced by externally, is through people we know, through the media, um, through our our education system growing up, and just a lot of external influences that really shape how we behave and how we think. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts on that as well.
Well, I mean, we definitely had a great conversation about this. And I don't even think we realize all the time what is influencing us, because as you mentioned, the media. It's funny because I know that, like, in communism and other, not capitalist. Oh, it's so you know democratic here and all that stuff. They talk about propaganda and how, especially like China, where you see, like, they do little performances where it's like, oh, have only two kids and oh, blah blah blah, everything is great because the government is telling you this is what you should be doing, this is how you should live your life because we instruct you to do that. But then you look at all of our media and you look at all of the influence that they have, like, buy your car, make sure you look like this when you get married, and all these things. And we don't understand that there's an awful lot of propaganda in our personal media because we don't see it coming from the government. Well, it's not necessarily coming from the government, but it's influence for sure. If they don't sell their cars and they don't make money on their houses and they don't, sell whatever the new iPhone is or whatever, those businesses are going to go under and our capitalist system will ultimately crumble. So there's an awful lot of propaganda and influence in the media. And you've touched on that immensely. If you get a chance to, for my listeners and obviously for your viewers, please watch his show on the media influence. He discusses this at length, and I believe it deserves that. And not necessarily on, like, influence, but how the media is run, and the basically the big powers that be running the entire thing, which is great. Spoiler alert.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. No, thank
but it's powerful. All these influences, and our parents and our family and where we grow up. We were talking about where you grew up versus where I grew up. Orange County versus LA. LA is always, like, supposed to be like crazy people, and Orange County is always afraid of coming to LA, and, like, oh, LA thinks they're too conservative, like the Orange County people are too conservative, and then the Orange County people think LA people are crazy. So,
you. Yep.
but why? Why would they think that? There's no evidence, like, oh God, it's just so crazy. It's,
I know
some
it's such a
political
crazy
people.
generalization.
Yeah, for sure. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, one time they voted this way and that makes them crazy, or whatever it is that, they happen to be thinking about at that moment. But that's, you know, you and I, while we grew up in California, people that don't know Southern California, everybody thinks of Southern California as LA. They even forget about San Diego. It's just SoCal is LA, and LA is not 700 miles or whatever. Southern California is
Right.
not that big.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but, but, you know, LA is the representation of Orange County also, and San Diego County. And, you know, some people do understand the difference, but for the most part, you're just kind of grouped in. And, you know, coming in, growing up here, you're like, oh, I'm not from there. So
Yeah.
it's just whatever influence that brings with you. I think it's very powerful to see the two worlds collide, so to speak, in whatever situation they happen to have to be in.
No, definitely. No, that's a great point. You know, having that awareness of knowing how where you grew up, you know, and people have specific, you know, stereotypes and
Mm-hmm.
generalizations about other parts of the world. I mean,
The world.
other parts of the same region, like OC and
Right.
LA, you know, let
Right.
alone other parts of the, you know, the country or
The
the world.
state, the country. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it really has an impact on like on how we act and how we behave, and you know, having that awareness can really help us, you know, take a step back and say, wait a minute, why do I do what I do? What exactly is influencing me to, you know, behave in this manner? Yeah, and I think it's such a great topic because I mean, as you know, one of my other videos is on types of religiosity, and so I talk about different types of religion
Also a good one.
that
Yeah.
oh, thank you that people have, and how that influences their worldview and how they act,
Mhm.
and with influence, I think that's one of the essential characteristics of religion when you go back to the original, when you go back to its origins, you know, whether you're talking about, you know, Judaism, whether you're talking about Christianity, whether you're talking about Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, this aspect of influence and how if we, uh, if we get, you know, influenced by, you know, these, you know, people in these different traditions, then
Mm-hmm.
it can lead us to behave in a certain way. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
you know, later on it's become about, you know, different forms. Oh, you should do this. You should have this ritual. You know, you speak,
Right.
you know, in this lingo. But when you go
Right.
down to the where it came from, it's about, hey, you know, where are you going to get your influence from? Here, this
Yeah.
worldview is saying, you know, these people have something inspirational to influence you that can lead you to have a better life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's like we lose sight of that. And like when you're talking about like with the media, it's like, hey, you got to look like this, you got to have like this type
Mm-hmm.
of figure or buy this type of car. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically saying, you know, the big businesses who are, you know, pushing these narratives, they're saying, hey, you know what? We want these images, these videos to
Mm-hmm.
influence and drive you. And
Yep.
you're right; it's not coming directly from the government. It's coming from you know, corporations that have a significant influence on the government,
Yeah.
but it's not directly coming from the government. So we can look at those
Right.
other societies as like, you know, communistic or
Right.
totalitarian and whatnot. Say, oh my God, they're so bad. You know, the government is
Right.
telling people what to do. Whereas, oh no, we're not the government.
Right.
And so, so people
But
put their
who
guard
pays for
down.
those guys, though?
Exactly. It's like, oh, let's put our card down. We'll see this really cool commercial about Doritos.
Right.
Oh, let's go, you know, buy a pack
Right.
and just chow
Frito
down,
Lay
you
doesn't
know?
own everything. They do.
Right,
They own
exactly. No,
everything.
of course not.
Like
So,
every chip
oh
you
yeah.
eat
I know,
and
right?
half the drinks you drink. Yeah.
That's a great point. So
All
many
the same company.
subsidiaries under different
Yeah.
names and
Mhm.
yeah.
And then I read somewhere, oh, it was Elizabeth Warren's book about the businesses that are being private businesses. So they're not getting in trouble for influencing the government officials that they're supporting so that they can hide, basically. So, you know, like I know the Koch brothers were probably the people to really have that kind of influence in the government to understand and support people in government that were willing to help push through legislation that helped the oil companies. And I definitely understand in a society, in our society, based so much on the economy, is the success of these gigantic businesses that can't fail, because if they do, then we fail, which, obviously no one wants the United States to fail except for people that hate us. And that's everybody. In case you didn't know, no one likes us. But which is
I know.
a matter
Yeah,
of influence.
yeah. Just go to one of our friendly nations, France, and take a walk on the streets in
Right.
Paris. And yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, anywhere. Just speak Spanish there, you'll be fine. They don't even know. Any other language, just don't speak English in France and you'll be fine.
That's so
Travel
true.
tips.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Like, it was funny. Like, it was like 15 years ago or so. I remember I was in Paris and it was raining, and my hotel reservation, my original hotel reservation, didn't pan out. So I was looking for another hotel, and I'm like, I'm just wandering in the streets of Paris looking for a hotel, and I run into this lady, and I say, "Excuse me, do you know where I could find a hotel?" And she gives me this look, this like dirty look, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And she said something to me in French, like, "How dare you?" The vibe was clear. It was like, "No, français," like, "You should be speaking French." And she didn't even answer my question. Though. She left. Yeah.
Not all of us. Not all of us. But that's how a lot of people in the United States treat people that don't speak English. A lot of people are like, "You should be speaking English here." No, we don't have a national language. Just so you know, people, there are so many languages spoken here in this country that we actually outnumber Africa, which has like hundreds of villages in each country. And they all speak something different, and we speak more languages than they do.
Wow, that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people try to impose a single language here as well, just like in France.
In France.
Yeah, it was funny. One of my wife's friends, we went to the fair here in Orange County, and then one of my wife's friends, she was speaking Persian to my wife or one of her friends, and there was this guy standing next to her, and I don't know if he was drunk or what, but he kind of looked over and he says, "Hey, we're in America. You bet
we are
nowhere.
Oh my gosh!"
And she kind of looked at him like, of course we are. Are you trying to humiliate me for speaking another, or bully me for speaking another language? Like, dude,
it's ridiculous.
Get with the times. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a good point.
Guess what? There are thousands of languages. Oh my gosh. There are more languages than countries, just so you know. And there are 193 countries, I think?
Yeah, there's almost 200 countries. Yeah.
Come on, calm down. People are just nuts. But I also think, a lot of people are like, well, if they'll make fun of people because they have a funny accent when they speak English, or they, but get it together. That person already speaks another language, and then they're accommodating you so you understand in your language. So I'm always, I'm very accommodating when it comes to somebody speaking another language and then speaking the language that we can share in English or whatever, so that we can communicate. I very much appreciate what they're willing to do for me, because this is the hardest language next to Arabic or any of those languages, any of the Arabic derivatives, anything that's a cousin to the original tongue of the world. Also, fact check. Original tongue, the closest one you're going to get is Arabic to original, what God or Jesus or whatever people in Western religion worship. That's the closest you're going to get. So if you translate something to Arabic, it's probably pretty close to what you're going to get an original like religious stuff. So
That's a great point. Yeah, like Hebrew and Arabic. Those are
yep,
Semitic languages.
yep,
And so yeah, if you want to go back to the original text and like understand biblical language, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic,
that's
which is
the
a
one, right?
derivative.
Aramaic is the
Yeah,
original one.
yeah, that's also a biblical language. Yeah, and then Arabic, which is the language where in Islam as well. So you have all
Hmm.
these languages that are coming from this derivative, where we tend to not have any affinity or mock those languages. But it's like, well, if you want to speak a language and get
That's the
closer to
language
kind of
your
what they were saying,
Jesus spoke. Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I think it's hilarious. But and then so much of English is Latin. So every time they're like, "Oh, why is somebody speaking French or Spanish or Italian or whatever?" Dude, language is older than English. So sorry to break it to you, but
So true.
English is one of the newest languages on the planet. Calm down. Everything will be fine.
Seriously,
And
seriously.
it's not
Yeah, and so this
bad.
is
Like,
like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, people trying to like, bully or influence
for
others,
sure.
without, just
Understanding.
by, yeah, without understanding and just through prejudice, discrimination,
Mhm.
just trying to say, hey, this is the way that we do it here. But if
Right.
you actually look back logically, historically, like you said, in the States, I mean, it was this close for German to be the national, like,
Here.
voted like the language that most people would speak here in the U.S.
That's
And,
right.
and like where we live in California, a conversation that we had. So I believe, you're fourth generation California, if I recall. Is that right, Gabby?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so in
We were here
California,
first.
yeah, it was such a great point.
I mean,
So
a lot of
California, yeah, it goes back to the times of being land of
this
Mexico.
was Mexico. Yes.
Yeah, so California wasn't, and it wasn't just Baja California. I know everybody loves to go to Cabo, and me too. Don't get me wrong, but
The whole
California
thing.
itself, yeah, was
Yep.
part of Mexico, and so yeah, and just
That's
like with the
right.
Native Americans, how it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we say, okay, well, this is our land. What we came and civilized this land and founded the U.S. But well, actually, no, the natives were actually living here. They were living here quite well, actually.
Right.
You know,
And to my knowledge, they've
cooperating.
never had a civil war, which we
Yeah,
can't say
no
the same
civil
thing.
war. They lived in harmony with the earth. They had
Yep.
like nourishing relationships, and
Yep.
yeah, and
They didn't
so
start
it's,
faltering until we got involved in their lives, actually.
yeah, exactly. I
Ironically.
know. Yeah, it's like you read Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, and like you'll see that when the colonizers came over from Spain, they
Mhm.
they were it basically impacted. They conducted genocide, and they forced
Yeah.
these natives to sign these documents, but they had no idea what they were for. They're saying, okay, now this is
Right.
our land. It's like, what do you mean our land or your land? This is the land. Like, we
Right.
belong to the land. So this concept of like
Right.
owning the land, it was like they're speaking another language.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally for it. Exactly. And they were
yes,
for it. So they didn't
yeah,
speak the language of the land. So when did we start this rule? You
exactly.
know.
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. So yeah, so going back to influence, and so we talked about all these like different external influences, right? And then
Whoa.
there's yeah, the
Sorry.
lighting's
I was
better
getting a little
now. No problem.
dark.
But yeah, then the internal influences, you look at how, we look inside, and if we understand and we say, oh, wait a minute, what do I really want to drive me and to inspire me, like in my life, and just to do this real inventory, right,
Right.
of where our external influences came from, and say, you know what, I don't want to be shaped by, my schooling, that taught me that, for example, Columbus came to, civilize
Yeah,
the natives, right? Or that, by some big,
because they were so
CEO.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're right. Or like some big CEO who's trying to get me to eat more Doritos. It's like, no, I don't want to be influenced by that.
Although great marketing, because we're talking
It
about
is.
Doritos.
It
They do
is.
not
I
sponsor
know.
either of our shows, by the way. We're open to this.
Right.
Half of
No, I know.
the Social Critic
Yeah.
and Gifted Gab are both
Yeah.
willing.
Yeah. I
Take that
know. Giving
sponsorship.
us so many plugs. Yeah. They owe us.
Um,
But yeah, it's
no, but
terrible. But
you're
go ahead.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we were talking about experience, and we talked about how, if we've had a negative experience with someone that looks similar, acts similar, even smells, women are really drawn by smell. So if you smell similar to somebody they had a good or bad experience with, they will, oddly enough, treat you similar to that smell again. So if you smell similar to someone they really like, they will probably treat you very kindly. And if you smell similar to someone they really don't like, you will probably get a cold shoulder. And they won't even know why, because
Wow.
the female nose is so um, connected to their memory that it's like a subconscious action that happens. It's very strange. And I read about it, and I can't even tell you who it was right now, but it was amazing to just realize that there are tons of times when I'm like, I do that. Oh man. And I can, and it's not, it's like the same cologne, or it's the same hairspray, or it's even like a general pheromone that certain people will put off, and I find myself reacting in the same manner. It's very strange, but
Wow.
psychiatry is amazing, as I'm sure your wife
Wow.
knows very well.
Yeah, like I'm often amazed by her sense of smell, and just how
Yeah.
much it impacts her and how sensitive she is to it. Of just like, wow,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like she can, smell something that seems a little off from like seemingly like a mile away. I'm like, how did you pick up on that? I can.
Right?
So yeah,
Our sense of smell
wow.
is so strong. It's so sad, though. I wish it wasn't. Because honestly, our lives would probably be easier if we couldn't smell things so well. That's why you guys have it easy. You guys can't smell. So you don't even smell
Right.
when your friends are smelly. Like some of you
Yeah.
guys, you're not smelling. No, you're a good smelling guy. Don't Gifted Gab fan, social critics. He's a good smelling guy. Don't worry. Very clean.
So
But
it's
I'm
like,
telling you, like some guys, they just put off this like weird funk. Girls too. Girls are not without smells, but like, and yeah, and I'm like, how does he have friends that is so strong? He's so masculine. He's so musky. It's not a good thing. All right, we
wow.
digress.
Yeah, no, but you're right. It's like that's another thing. It's
But
like
that
it's
will influence
internal.
my, yeah, that will influence how I feel about them, inevitably.
Totally, totally, for sure. Yeah, and it's like you know we look at other ways that people think that, oh, in order to influence someone else, then I need to like speak like a professor or to
Right,
use all these like big words.
right.
When a lot of times, if you really want to influence someone, it's like, hey, why don't you smell nice? you
Right.
know,
Serious.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say women will catch on to a man's pheromones, and that will attract them to it. So like
Wow.
pheromones are a big thing in courting and whatever. So if you are lucky with the ladies, you are probably not just smooth talking, but you probably emit some sort of smell that is attractive to women. So good
Wow.
job, Sahel. You probably have those
And that's a
ladies, man.
tip for all our listeners.
Now that's how you get your girl. All right.
Yeah.
Don't say I didn't help you with anything. But
Good
it is a
deal.
form of influence, and these are things that are just biochemical things that you have no idea are happening. And there are so many influences that are similar to that, like someone's eyes and how they move their eyebrows when they talk, or how they like the curves of their lips, and how that reflects like trustworthiness and things like that. So there's like mind reading, or mind readers that can take the simple movements of your eyes and your mouth and how you're doing these to figure out what you're going to say next or what you're going to do based on what they know about the science of the the way your features move. So it's crazy,
Wow.
all of this stuff, and then on top of all the other external influences. But there's so much influencing you. But
Right.
we did have a conversation about how influence would have prevented us from being friends outside of the one major influence that most people have in their life, which is their job. Um,
That's right.
and that's how, so Hale and I worked together a few years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Without aging
Not
ourselves,
too
we'll
long
just say
ago.
it
Right.
was a little while
Yeah.
ago.
A little while. Yeah.
We go a little way back. Um,
That's so true. Yep.
but
No,
it brought
I'm
together,
glad you mentioned that. Go ahead.
right? It brought together two people that would not have necessarily come together in any other reason, other than our trade, and even our job wasn't the same. So this
Right.
company had positions for the two of us, and then even in that company, by the time you got there, there was probably about 200 people already, or close to it, 150 people or so. Um, and so there was a chance we wouldn't have run into each other or anything. But so Hale was always smiling. I remember that. Someone was always making him laugh. He's always smiling. Me, always mad, always like very serious face. I always had a lot on my mind. Um, and yet
but
we still
still,
managed to make friends.
yeah, no, but you still, no, you could tell, from Gabby's good vibe, it was clear. Even if it was a challenging situation, for me, it was like, okay, no, I know that, Gabby is definitely cool and someone I can talk to and just chill and, you could just be yourself
Cool,
around.
cool
Maybe
is
not so.
a little stretch, but that's fine. If you thought I was cool, great. I will never call myself cool because I know me too well. But if other people, that's fine by me. No, but I mean,
Cool.
he's from Orange County. He's a straight guy. He's Middle Eastern. There's no real reason like we wouldn't have worshiped together. We wouldn't have hung out in the same bars. We wouldn't have like. There's not really a lot that would have connected us outside of work. Because I'm gay from LA and Mexican. Like Mexicans generally are Catholics. Middle Eastern people are generally Muslims. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm saying
Right.
that's the
Totally.
norm. If we go
Yep.
by those boxes, like we talked about, that we check off, those boxes don't mix together. But the
Exactly.
connection is there. And so I think what we were trying to convey with this podcast slash YouTube video was you never know. Even if your check boxes don't match, there's still some sort of pull. There could still be some sort of common connection that you have that's so far beyond those boxes that you check. He and I actually have more in common than most of our friends that we associate with all the time. We actually
Yep.
have a ton more in common than
So true.
the people we live with, in fact. Well, at least for me, he and I
Yeah.
will have a
No.
lot more in common.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I totally relate. It's like coming from different backgrounds. On the surface, it's like, why would I want to interact with that person? Like you said, different
Right.
ethnic background, religious background. One gay, one straight. Just
Yeah.
it's so many different differences. But when we look at, oh my gosh, wait a minute, this is actually someone that I can interact with, someone I feel comfortable with, and that reminds me, yeah, there's this philosopher. His name's John Rawls, and he talks about putting on this veil of ignorance if we want to treat people justly, like if we want to treat people fairly. And he put out this theory of justice, and that was an important part of it. How he was
Mm-hmm.
saying that if you want to be just and fair with people, it's like when you see them and when you interact with them, put on this veil of ignorance as if you don't know anything about their background. that you're just
Absolutely.
interacting with the person right there in front of you.
Hmm.
And like in our example, if we just do that, it's like, oh my gosh, we share so much in common, you know.
He
But a lot
saw
of
the
times in
lot.
yeah,
I
but a lot of
don't.
times in society, you know, it's like walking down the street. Oh, that you know, there's that type of person, or there's that type of person.
Absolutely.
It's like we give these
Absolutely.
dirty looks, or you know, like
Hmm.
in our head, like, oh, those people,
We're
and it just
prejudging.
prevents us from connecting. Totally, creates this prejudice,
Absolutely.
prejudging environment.
Absolutely. And right now, we can't afford to do that. There's no way. I mean, I absolutely politically, I have very strong beliefs about certain things. However, I also understand that a lot of those influences come from a lot of the media that's shoving things down my throat. I know a lot of, people that don't feel the same way as me. They're not getting the same media. Um, there's a ton of things you have to remember. Being raised in a conservative liberal family, my mother is very conservative. Um, Whereas I'm pretty freaking cool with just about everything. Don't don't hurt people. It's my general rule. As long as you're not really hurting anybody, it's none of my business what you're doing. And as like, have a good time, be free, do what you need to, whatever. Just don't hurt anybody. Uh, it's not like I want chaos to happen. It's just I don't want to control your every move, and it's none of my business. Um, my mother does not feel that way. She's very different, and obviously that causes a clash when you grow up with a mother like that and you are who you are. Um, you tend to pull back, but I think it's given me a way to understand that not everybody's going to feel the same way, and that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes it different. We put aside what we didn't even care about because we were both going through this experience at this job together, and we knew coming together is easier than trying to be at odds to complete this project together. And I think as long as everybody understands, we're all in this together. We're doing this human thing all together. It's hard for everybody at a different level for different reasons, and everybody's going through their own thing. It's way easier to support each other and try and build each other up than it is to continue to conflict everything they say and live a life in like anger and like, gosh, I can't stand how they do that. Okay, well, that's fine. They're doing that. There's nothing wrong with what's happening to you. Does it actually affect you? Probably not. You'll be fine.
It's a
And
great
that's it,
point.
you know?
It really is. You're right. It's so much easier if we can just open ourselves up to others and not have to create the sense of like self and other that, oh, my group is so different and so, you know, better than
Yeah.
other groups. And just
Hmm.
if we can just like, you know, put our guard down and just treat people like respectfully and kindly, it's like
Hmm.
it's such a win-win. It's crazy, you know,
Definitely.
and it just puts a lot of these like tensions and these prejudices that we see everywhere. It just really helps them like subside and just go in the back burner, and it just becomes so much easier to like interact and appreciate people's differences as
Yeah.
opposed to you know pointing out people's differences and saying, "Oh, you're wrong or you're bad because of
Yeah.
that." Because I grew up with
Yeah.
that too, where you grow up in a judging, environment. This is good. This is bad. Really strong opinions about that, like from my upbringing. And then it's like, if we let that like consume us, then, oh my God, there's only like a certain small group of people that we're allowed to like get close to and be friends
Right.
with. And
Right.
then we just lock ourselves off from, what amazing things that other people can offer. And
Absolutely.
so, and
Absolutely. And there's so much people have to offer.
so
And,
true.
as long as we're patient and, just try and get past that part that initially says, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this, whatever. Okay, well, let's focus on what we have in common. Everybody bleeds. Everybody has family. Everybody can probably complain about their kids or probably, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
there's
Or
so
their
many things we
partner
have
or
in
whatever.
common,
Yeah.
right? That we
Yeah.
we are so busy focusing on the differences. But if we really go and look for the things that we have in common, we can bond over those things and then learn from the differences. It doesn't have to be World War III because we don't agree on things. Like, we're not going to agree on everything, and we don't have to. That's the great thing
Right.
about being a human and having free will. What?
Exactly. I know. It's like, not only it's like we don't have to agree, but it's like, oh my God, if someone's different, that can actually enrich our lives, as
Absolutely.
opposed to like looking at it to say, oh gosh, they're bad because they're different. And it's like, yeah, I've gotten, and I know we're running out of time, but I've gotten into many an argument with
Oh, I'm
my
sure.
lovely spouse. And, while I'm in it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do things this way. It drives me crazy. But then if I take a step back and I say, oh my gosh, you know what? The way she does things, it's actually just a weakness of mine. I can't do things the way that she can do. And maybe I should try and integrate a little bit of that. Maybe I can embody some of that and it might help me, who knows, in my life. So,
Ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen, the husband that admits the wife is right. The social critic on Gift of Gab. If that's not the way to wrap things up, I don't know what it is. The husband that admits the wife is right. Just saying.
Yeah, it definitely,
And it's
yeah,
being recorded on
it
two
helps
different
me get
shows.
by. Right. We got to cut that out. We got to cut it out. No,
Edit it out. Edit it out.
Yeah. But yeah,
Well,
no,
I
I
think
found it helps. Yeah.
it's an amazing. I mean, it's an amazing point of view for you to take and be like, yeah, I'm not. My experience isn't the only experience, and I think that's everything for everybody. My experience is not the only kind of experience,
Sorry.
and I don't have to necessarily be the one that wins all the time. There may be something of value from what somebody else is saying, and I think that it's really admirable of you to admit to. I
Oh
know
no.
no guys agree with him. I know.
Yeah.
Nobody agrees with him. He's right.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
I'm
Hey guys,
wrong.
just
I'm more of the
it
husband
is a
than the
little
wife.
bit of my experience. It might help someone. Who knows? But yeah.
Help you through another year of marriage. He's been married for 16 years, ladies and gentlemen. He
Yeah.
knows how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
I mean,
saying. Just saying.
he's been married for 16 months. He's not old enough to be married for 16 years.
Yeah, Gabby, what are you talking about? I
Sorry,
just
brother.
turned 20. Yeah. So
Sorry, brother.
no, it's all good. Yeah. But no, that's great. Well, that was
That was
terrific.
awesome.
Well,
Yes,
thank you
I
so
agree.
much for doing this, Gabby. So you guys definitely check it out, The Gift of Gab. So you'll
On
definitely see
Spotify,
that.
iTunes, and stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll laugh, you'll learn, and you'll benefit from Gabby's beautiful presence and funny. So
And
yeah,
follow the social critic. This guy will teach you things that will kind of blow your mind and make you a little mad. But as we just learned, you can, if you let it process, you'll learn something from it and you could gain some knowledge. So follow the social critic on YouTube. Make sure you follow this guy. I'm going to tag him on my stuff, so don't worry. He's going to be back on the show, I'm sure.
yes. No, we definitely have to do this again. Great. Thank you
All
so
right.
much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good
Bye
one.
bye.
Bye. Talk to you
You too.
later.